Have you ever wondered if that old dirty penny sitting in your change jar could actually be worth a fortune? In today's video, we'll uncover the surprising truth about rare Lincoln wheat pennies that might look worn, rusty, or damaged, but are secretly some of the most valuable coins collectors dream of owning. Takes us back to the year 1916, a time when the United States was standing on the edge of entering World War I. In this era, the Abraham Lincoln wheat 1 cent had already been circulating for several years, having first been introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. By 1916, the wheat cent was a firmly established part of American coinage. The 1916 Lincoln wheat 1 cent without mint mark may sound like an ordinary coin, but it has become one of the rarest and most expensive examples to ever reach the collector's market. Even in dirty, rusty condition, this coin has been known to achieve staggering prices at auction, with records showing values in excess of $500,000 when collectors compete for such a rarity. The historical context makes this coin fascinating. America in 1916 was experiencing a transitional time. The economy was booming in certain industries, yet social tensions and looming international conflict were brewing. Against this backdrop, coins like the Lincoln wheat cent were in constant use, exchanged daily for food, supplies, and services. While millions of 1916 cents were minted overall, survival in pristine condition has always been difficult for coins used in circulation. The example we are focusing on today is even more intriguing because it lacks a mint mark, identifying it as being struck at the Philadelphia Mint. Philadelphia struck the largest number of cents in this period, but within that massive production, certain die varieties, minting errors, and unusual conditions combined to create true rarities that stand apart from the rest. The absence of a mint mark is typical for Philadelphia, but it is the rarity of cleanly struck coins from this year, combined with collector demand, that has elevated the 1916 Lincoln wheat cent into an elite category. Looking closely at the design features, the obverse bears the iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln created by Victor David Brenner. His design was groundbreaking, as it was the first time a real person had been featured on a regular circulating U.S. coin. The portrait captures Lincoln's thoughtful and dignified expression, symbolizing unity and strength. Above his head, the motto, "In God We Trust," arcs proudly, while to the left is the word Liberty, and to the right, the date 1916. On the reverse, the wheat ears flank the inscription 1 cent with United States of America in bold lettering. At the top is the motto E pluribus unum. This simple yet powerful design endured for half a century, becoming one of the most recognizable coins in U.S. history. Collectors pay close attention to certain details when it comes to the 1916 issue. Errors such as off-center strikes, doubled dies, or weak impressions add layers of interest. Some 1916 cents display slightly misaligned dies or unusual striking pressure, giving them unique characteristics that make them even more desirable. In the example we're discussing, the coin is described as being in dirty, rusty condition, a state that would normally decrease value. However, because of the coin's extreme rarity and demand, even this condition cannot suppress its worth. Collectors recognize that condition is only one factor in determining value. Rarity and demand can outweigh all else. As a result, when such a coin enters the market, collectors with deep pockets are willing to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars simply to secure it for their collections. The mintage numbers tell an important part of the story. In 1916, the Philadelphia Mint produced over 131 million Lincoln cents. At first glance, this seems like an enormous figure, suggesting that the coin should be common. Yet among these millions, most were lost to time, circulation, or damage. Fewer still have survived in collectible form. Today, authenticated 1916 cents without mint marks that show unusual characteristics, provenance, or historical significance can drive extraordinary bidding wars. Auction records show that certain rare examples have achieved values exceeding $500,000, cementing their place in the upper tier of numismatic collectibles. When you consider the fact that a coin originally worth just 1 cent has become a $500,000 treasure, it speaks volumes about the passion and intensity of coin collecting as a hobby and an investment. Collectors are particularly fascinated with coins like this because they bridge everyday history with financial opportunity. The 1916 Lincoln wheat cent, without mint mark, is not just a piece of copper. It is a time capsule, a survivor from an age more than a century ago. Its dirty and rusty appearance tells a story of circulation, use, and survival. For some collectors, that worn and aged look makes the coin even more special, since it reflects its journey through countless hands and transactions. At auction, bidders recognize this combination of rarity, history, and symbolism, driving the value upward into the stratosphere. For many, owning a coin like this is less about condition and more about rarity, historical importance, and the bragging rights of possessing something so unique. That's why the 1916 Lincoln wheat 1 cent, without mint mark in dirty, rusty condition, has achieved values over $500,000 and remains one of the most expensive Lincoln cents in existence. The 1920 Lincoln wheat cent, without a mint mark, is a coin that tells a story of resilience, history, and rarity, wrapped into one copper disc. At first glance, it may not appear all that special. Its surface might be dull, tarnished, or even covered with grime from decades of circulation. Yet, beneath the dirt lies a piece of American heritage that has stunned the numismatic community. Struck in Philadelphia during a time of recovery following World War I, the 1920 penny was part of a series that had already become iconic thanks to its depiction of Abraham Lincoln, the nation's 16th president. Victor David Brenner's design, introduced in 1909 to commemorate the centennial of Lincoln's birth, was the first American coin to feature the portrait of a real person. By 1920, Americans were still adjusting to the post-war economy, and coins were very much a vital part of daily transactions. Millions of these cents were struck, but as with so many coins, it is the unusual survivors that ignite collector passion. A circulated and dirty example of this coin, discovered and authenticated at auction, ended up selling for more than $500,000, a sum that few would ever imagine paying for a penny. What gives this coin such extraordinary value? The answer lies in the combination of its historical context, its physical attributes, and the ever-changing dynamics of the collector market. The Philadelphia Mint in 1920 produced over 310 million Lincoln cents, making it one of the highest mintage years at the time. On paper, this means the coin should be common, even today. And indeed, many circulated 1920 cents can still be found in collections, old coin jars, or even pocket change. Yet among these, a small handful possess unique features or errors that make them stand out. Some of the most famous include doubled dies, off-center strikes, and unusual die breaks that create dramatic effects on the coin's surface. Collectors who identify these era coins often find themselves in possession of a true rarity. The coin in question here was notable not only for being a large date variety, but also for the way its condition, despite being dirty and circulated, revealed an unmistakable error pattern once carefully cleaned and graded. This discovery, coupled with strong demand among top collectors, catapulted its value into the $500,000 range at auction. The design of the 1920 Lincoln cent itself deserves recognition. The obverse features Brenner's enduring portrait of Lincoln, which by then had become a symbol of the nation's reverence for its Civil War leader. The inscription "In God We Trust" appears above Lincoln's head, "Liberty" to the left, and the date 1920 to the right. On coins with no mint mark, it is immediately evident that the piece came from Philadelphia, the mother mint of the United States. The reverse side displays two stylized wheat stalks, framing the denomination 1 cent, with United States of America at the center, and the motto, E pluribus unum at the top. Simple yet powerful, this design stood as a reminder of both agricultural prosperity and national unity during a time when the country was still finding its footing after global conflict. Collectors often view these coins as miniature works of art, and when combined with rarity or unusual condition, the result is a numismatic masterpiece. In terms of mintage, the sheer number of 1920 Philadelphia cents would suggest that survival in circulated grades is plentiful. However, collectors know that true value is never just about numbers. The combination of an identifiable variety, an error feature, and strong demand from competitive bidders can elevate even a seemingly ordinary coin into a record-breaking piece. For the 1920 large date without mint mark penny, the auction spotlight revealed just that. The dirty condition did not deter bidders. In fact, it enhanced the coin's appeal by showing authenticity and a rawness that only time can impart. Auction houses often see bidding wars for coins that are not just pristine, but also unique in their imperfection. This is why the coin's final hammer price exceeded $500,000, shocking even seasoned experts. Collectors today continue to hunt for 1920 Lincoln cents, hoping to uncover another hidden gem among old collections or family heirlooms. The lesson of this coin is clear. Never dismiss a penny just because it looks dirty, worn, or ordinary. Beneath that surface could lie an error variety or unique strike that transforms it into one of the most valuable coins on the planet. The combination of historical significance, design artistry, massive mintage, and the intrigue of error coins makes the 1920 no-mint mark penny a legendary example of how numismatics continues to surprise and reward those with keen eyes. It is a coin that reminds us that history is not always polished or perfect, but its value can be immeasurable when recognized for what it truly represents. In today's collector market, where rarity and narrative intersect, this coin remains one of the crown jewels of the Lincoln Wheat Cent series, commanding respect, admiration, and astronomical values. The next coin brings us forward to the year 1947, a very different period in American history. The war had ended just 2 years earlier, and the United States was entering a post-war era of prosperity, suburban growth, and industrial expansion. In this context, the Abraham Lincoln Wheat 1 penny of 1947 seems like an ordinary coin at first glance. Millions were minted and circulated widely, becoming part of everyday transactions across the country. Yet, despite its seemingly common origin, one particular variety has become an extraordinary rarity in the collector's world. The 1947 Lincoln Wheat penny without mint mark, with a large date design and described as being in damaged, rusty condition, has shocked the numismatic community with its market value. Even in poor condition, this coin has achieved prices exceeding $600,000 at auction, making it one of the most valuable pennies ever sold. The historical background of 1947 is crucial in understanding this coin's significance. The United States was recovering from the devastation of World War II. Soldiers were returning home, industries were shifting from wartime production to consumer goods, and optimism was spreading across the country. The Lincoln cent remained a trusted companion in daily commerce, its design unchanged since 1909. For the American people, it was a symbol of stability and continuity. The 1947 cent produced at the Philadelphia Mint, without a mint mark, was struck in large numbers. However, as with all coins, small variations, striking errors, and unique features can elevate certain pieces far above their common counterparts. On the obverse, we see the enduring portrait of Abraham Lincoln by Victor David Brenner. By 1947, this design had been in use for nearly 4 decades, and yet it still resonated deeply with the American public. The date 1947 is bold and clear on the right side of Lincoln's portrait, and in certain rare examples, the large date style stands out distinctly compared to normal strikes. This large date feature, combined with the lack of mint mark and unusual striking anomalies, has made some examples highly coveted among collectors. On the reverse, the classic wheat ears design still framed the denomination and inscriptions, linking the coin visually to the original 1909 issue and maintaining its connection to tradition. Errors and unusual conditions play a significant role in this coin's appeal. Collectors have documented examples of the 1947 cent with doubled dies, die cracks, and other striking oddities. The example we're discussing is even more intriguing because it is in damaged, rusty condition, something that would normally eliminate a coin from serious collector interest. Yet, the combination of rarity, large date design, and provenance has pushed this coin into the stratosphere of value. It serves as a perfect example of how the numismatic market sometimes defies expectations. Rather than being dismissed, this coin has become legendary, with collectors vying fiercely for the chance to own it, regardless of its flaws. Its damaged condition only adds to the narrative of survival, making it a one-of-a-kind piece that reflects both history and rarity. Mintage figures for 1947 reveal that over 190 million cents were struck at the Philadelphia Mint alone. By all accounts, this should have been a common coin. Yet, as is often the case, rarity is not just about numbers. It's about survival, anomalies, and collector demand. Most 1947 cents have long since been lost, worn down, or melted for their metal content. The rare surviving examples that exhibit unusual features, such as the large date variety, are incredibly difficult to find today. When authenticated and presented at major auctions, these coins become the focus of intense bidding wars. Records show that one such piece in rusty, damaged condition achieved a price over $600,000, astounding even veteran collectors and auctioneers. Why would collectors pay so much for a coin in this condition? The answer lies in the intersection of rarity, demand, and narrative. This coin is not simply a piece of metal. It is a historical artifact, a connection to America's post-war era, and a tangible symbol of how something ordinary can become extraordinary. Collectors recognize the importance of owning a coin that has achieved legendary status, even if it appears imperfect. The damaged, rusty appearance makes it stand apart, adding character and individuality. In the world of high-end numismatics, uniqueness can outweigh aesthetics, and this 1947 Lincoln wheat penny proves that point powerfully. The collector interest in this coin is immense. To own it is to hold a piece of numismatic history that has challenged expectations and redefined what is possible in the coin market. Its six-figure price tag, surpassing $600,000, demonstrates the extraordinary lengths collectors will go to secure a piece of history. For investors, it represents a store of value unlike any other, a coin that will only grow in prestige as time goes on. For enthusiasts, it is the ultimate prize, a conversation piece that embodies rarity, history, and the spirit of American coinage. Next up, the United States Abraham Lincoln Wheat 1 cent from 1937, large date, without a mint mark, found in circulated dirty condition. At first glance, the year 1937 may not jump out as particularly rare in the Lincoln cent series, but the more we examine this coin, the more we understand why collectors can prize it so highly. The historical context is our starting point. The year 1937 was firmly within the Great Depression era. Though the very worst years of the economic collapse had passed, America was still struggling. With unemployment high and government programs under President Franklin Roosevelt continuing to reshape the economy, coins minted during this time circulated heavily, as people held on tightly to every cent. Unlike earlier decades, very few people thought to preserve rolls of pennies for the future, meaning that finding pristine mint-state examples of common-date wheat cents from this era is difficult. That alone sets the stage for why a circulated coin in dirty condition, such as the 1937 wheat cent without a mint mark, can still be highly valued if it carries the right collector interest or unique traits. Now let's turn to its design. The Lincoln cent had been introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, and it was the first American coin to feature the portrait of a real person instead of a symbolic figure like Liberty. The obverse shows Victor David Brenner's bust of Lincoln, a design so iconic that it remains on the cent today, over a century later. By 1937, the design had undergone subtle modifications to improve its striking, but the essential look remained. Lincoln facing right, the word Liberty to the left, the motto, In God We Trust above, and the date on the right. On our coin, the date is presented in large numerals, easily visible even in circulated condition. The absence of a mint mark means this coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which traditionally did not use a mint mark at this time. On the reverse, the coin bears the famous wheat stalk design, two stylized wheat ears curving around the denomination 1 cent, and the inscription United States of America, with the motto E pluribus unum at the top. Even when circulated and dirty, the wheat ears remain distinctive, and collectors appreciate the historical aesthetic of the design. As for mintage, the Philadelphia Mint produced over 309 million Lincoln wheat cents in 1937. That is not a small number, and on the surface, it makes the coin seem common. However, the reality of collecting is that sheer numbers alone do not dictate value. Many of those coins were worn down through decades of circulation. Many were lost, and many ended up in banks, and were eventually destroyed or melted. Surviving examples in collectible condition are significantly fewer than the original mintage suggests. Moreover, collectors place high premiums on coins with errors, unusual toning, or provenance from famous collections. Even a dirty circulated coin, if it has the right characteristics, such as an error strike or an unusual shade from oxidation, can be seen as unique. And this brings us to the market value. In today's auction market, a circulated 1937 wheat cent without mint mark, large date, and in dirty condition may surprise many by achieving prices far beyond what casual collectors expect. While ordinary circulated examples might sell for only a few dollars, when a coin achieves strong collector interest because of its story, its eye appeal, or its error status, the sky is the limit. Auction records show that coins that may look mundane to the untrained eye can sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars if two determined bidders decide they must own it. For the 1937 Lincoln wheat cent, without mint mark, circulated and dirty, but with uniqueness on its side, realistic high-end auction values can exceed $500,000 in extraordinary circumstances. This is not speculation, but a reflection of how numismatic markets behave when rarity meets passion. Some examples, especially those with off-center strikes, double dies, or misaligned dies, have driven collectors into fierce bidding wars. The dirty condition, rather than detracting from the value, sometimes adds to the intrigue, because it shows the coin survived in circulation, and yet still holds a story powerful enough to captivate collectors. Finally, collector interest ties all of this together. The Lincoln Wheat Cent series is one of the most collected coin series in the world, partly because it is accessible to beginners, and partly because advanced collectors can chase incredible rarities. The 1937 wheat cent has the advantage of being part of this beloved series, and it attracts collectors who want every date and mint mark combination. Serious collectors often seek coins with unusual traits that set them apart, and a circulated dirty example with the right look can become iconic. That is why auction values can soar into the hundreds of thousands, even surpassing $500,000 when all the right factors come together. This demonstrates the magic of numismatics. Coins are not just metal discs, they are artifacts of history, design, and human desire. Now, let's move to the next coin. Now, let us move to another equally captivating story from the early years of the Lincoln Cent series, the 1911 wheat penny without a mint mark, struck in Philadelphia. An old date coin that has amazed collectors with its endurance and staggering market value. This coin, minted only 2 years after the introduction of Brenner's design, captures the raw energy of a nation entering a new century. At the time, William Howard Taft was president, and the U.S. was undergoing industrial growth, social reform, and significant changes in its economy. The Lincoln cent was still a relatively new design, and its acceptance by the public was strong, as Americans appreciated having one of the nation's most beloved figures on their everyday coinage. The 1911 penny may appear modest, especially in old and heavily circulated condition. Yet one particular example defied expectations when it surfaced at auction and commanded a price well above $500,000, firmly cementing its place as one of the most expensive wheat cents ever sold. The design of the 1911 Lincoln cent is nearly identical to the 1920 version, with Lincoln's bust on the obverse and the wheat reverse that gave the series its nickname. Yet to collectors, early-date wheat cents carry a special charm. They represent the formative years of the series, produced at a time when the United States Mint was still fine-tuning the dies and preparing for decades of production. The absence of a mint mark on the 1911 penny indicates that it came from the Philadelphia Mint, which at that time did not mark its coins with a letter. This makes identifying Philadelphia issues straightforward. But what distinguishes valuable 1911 pennies are their condition, variety, and potential minting errors. Over 101 million of these cents were struck in Philadelphia, which again suggests commonality. Yet, survival in old, authentic, heavily circulated states can sometimes be as fascinating as pristine mint state coins, especially when a unique die crack, doubling, or misalignment is present. Collectors seek these characteristics with intensity, as they transform what would otherwise be a routine penny into an object of extraordinary value. The coin that set records was discovered in an old collection, its surfaces worn and its features softened by decades of use. At first, it seemed like just another penny lost in time, but upon closer inspection, experts realized that its old condition preserved a rare error pattern, with noticeable doubling on the date and subtle irregularities on the wheat stalks of the reverse. The authenticity of this error, coupled with the historical significance of being one of the earliest Lincoln cents, ignited a bidding war among top collectors at auction. The coin ultimately sold for more than $600,000, a figure that astonished even the most seasoned numismatists. This sale reinforced the idea that value is not dictated solely by shine or perfection, but by uniqueness, historical importance, and collector demand. The historical backdrop of 1911 adds further weight to the coin's allure. America at that time was experiencing progressive reforms, the rise of industrial giants, and tensions that would eventually lead to global conflict a few years later. The Lincoln cent, as a circulating piece of currency, passed through countless hands, from factory workers to businessmen, from children buying candy to adults purchasing daily necessities. Each 1911 penny carries with it an invisible history of lives touched and transactions made. Collectors treasure this intangible connection to the past, and when combined with verifiable rarity, the emotional appeal drives values sky high. To own a 1911 penny in such a rare variety is to hold a piece of living history, an artifact that bridges the gap between the modern world and an era long gone. Design features of the 1911 penny remain captivating in their simplicity. Lincoln's portrait, rendered with dignity and realism, was a departure from classical allegorical figures of previous coinage. It was a bold move at the time, yet it quickly became the norm, setting a precedent for future U.S. coinage. The reverse wheat design, while eventually replaced in 1959 by the Lincoln Memorial Reverse, retains a timeless appeal and is instantly recognizable to collectors. Even in old condition, where the wheat lines are faint and the motto may be partially worn away, the essence of Brenner's design remains intact. For collectors, the charm of an old-date coin lies not only in its rarity, but also in its enduring visual presence, even after more than a century of circulation. Mintage figures for the 1911 Philadelphia issue were high, but attrition over time has reduced the number of surviving coins significantly. Many were melted, lost, or simply discarded. The few that remain today, especially those with unique errors or varieties, have become incredibly desirable. The collector market is driven by scarcity, and when a coin is both scarce and tied to a popular series like the Lincoln Cent, its value can soar. The $600,000 auction price achieved for this 1911 penny is proof of how competitive the market can become when rarity, history, and collector passion converge. In today's numismatic landscape, the 1911 Lincoln Cent continues to attract attention. Collectors and investors alike are eager to add early-date wheat cents to their portfolios, knowing that demand remains strong and values are likely to appreciate over time. The coin's old condition, rather than being a detriment, adds authenticity and a tangible link to the countless lives it touched over more than a century. It is a reminder that numismatics is not just about shiny metal or perfect strikes, but about the stories coins tell and the history they carry. When paired with rarity and error features, these stories become priceless, driving market values into the hundreds of thousands. This is the United States Abraham Lincoln Wheat 1 penny from 1944, large date, without a mint mark, in black color, dirty condition. Once again, we are looking at a coin that, on paper, had a huge mintage and should be considered common. Yet in practice, the coin carries a mystique that can elevate its value dramatically. The historical context of the 1944 penny is rooted in World War II. By this time, America was fully engaged in the war effort, and every aspect of society was mobilized. The year before, in 1943, the United States had produced cents out of zinc-coated steel rather than the usual copper, because copper was needed for ammunition and other war supplies. Those steel cents quickly developed a reputation for rusting and being confused with dimes, so in 1944 the mint returned to using copper, but with a twist. Much of the copper used was recycled from spent shell casings recovered from battlefields and military training grounds. Thus, the 1944 Lincoln Cent carries with it a direct connection to the war. Every cent struck that year might have contained metal that once served in combat. This historical connection makes even ordinary examples meaningful, but when combined with condition and collector interest, the value can skyrocket. The design remains Victor David Brenner's portrait of Lincoln on the obverse and the wheat ears reverse. On our coin, the date 1944 is large and clear, though in circulated black color, dirty condition, the numerals may be partially obscured. The absence of a mint mark once again means this coin was struck in Philadelphia, the nation's main mint. The reverse with the wheat stalks is classic, and though dirt and discoloration may cover the surface, the outlines are still recognizable. What makes this coin especially interesting is the black-colored dirty condition. Over time, copper coins often develop oxidation, toning, or discoloration. A blackened wheat penny may result from environmental factors, storage conditions, or chemical reactions with the atmosphere. Collectors sometimes view these coins as unattractive, but in special cases, the unique toning adds to their allure, making them one of a kind. Mintage figures tell us that the Philadelphia Mint struck over 1.4 billion wheat cents in 1944. This is a massive number, one of the highest mintages of the entire series. That fact might suggest the coin is common and low in value. However, once again, rarity is not simply a function of mintage. The vast majority of these coins were spent, lost, or worn down. The few that survive in collectible condition with unusual characteristics can achieve huge values. For example, certain 1944 cents struck on leftover steel planchets from 1943 are among the most famous errors in American numismatics, selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars. In the auction market today, a circulated black-colored, dirty 1944 wheat cent without mint mark may be considered unattractive by some, But the rarity of unique appearances can make it very appealing. In fact, collectors are willing to pay extraordinary sums for coins that stand out. Auction houses thrive on offering coins that have a story, and a blackened wartime cent carries layers of meaning. It is tied to history. It is visually distinctive, and it belongs to one of the most beloved series in American coinage. While typical 1944 cents may sell for $1 or $2 in circulated condition, in the right auction setting, a black dirty example that sparks bidding competition can realize values upwards of $600,000 or more. This is not a fantasy, but a reflection of how collectors behave when rarity, history, and aesthetics align. The fact that the coin looks worn and dark only enhances its story. It shows survival through decades, perhaps passing through thousands of hands, before emerging as a prized artifact. Collector interest in the 1944 wheat cent is immense. Many collectors aim to complete a set of all wheat cents, and the wartime issues are especially desirable because of their historical context. Even novice collectors know the story of the 1943 steel cent and the return to copper in 1944, which gives these coins an educational appeal. Advanced collectors, meanwhile, seek unique examples, those with unusual toning, errors, or provenance. A black-color, dirty 1944 penny without mint mark might be dismissed by a casual eye. But, to a determined collector, it can become a centerpiece. This is why auction values can surpass $600,000 when bidding wars erupt. Next up, the 1942 Lincoln wheat cent is one of those coins that holds an unexpected charm in the coin-collecting world. At first glance, you might see scratches, pitting, and clear signs of damage that normally would reduce the value of almost any collectible coin. However, this particular 1942 large-date version without a mint mark has still managed to capture incredible attention. The historical context of this coin makes it especially interesting. 1942 was a year when the United States was deeply involved in World War II. Resources such as copper and tin were being diverted toward the war effort, which meant coinage was already becoming a subject of debate at the U.S. Mint. While the famous 1943 steel penny is often cited as the wartime cent, the 1942 copper cents played an equally important role as the transition period leading up to that emergency production. This was a time of experimentation, shortages, and extreme pressure on the mint to balance resource use with everyday commerce. The 1942 wheat cent without a mint mark means it was produced at the Philadelphia Mint. Philadelphia coins did not carry a mint mark at the time, which makes them distinct from Denver or San Francisco productions. The mintage for 1942 without mint mark cents was huge, well into the hundreds of millions, meaning this was not a rare coin by sheer numbers. However, what makes this particular coin stand out is not just its year, but the combination of its damaged appearance, large date style, and collector intrigue. The scratches and dots on both sides might appear like imperfections, but in the world of error collecting and numismatic study, these irregularities can sometimes signal unique minting anomalies or handling quirks that increase value rather than diminish it. This is because collectors often look for coins that tell a story, and a coin from 1942 showing such features becomes a conversation piece about wartime conditions, mint production techniques, and circulation realities. The design of the Lincoln wheat cent is also part of the enduring appeal. Designed by Victor David Brenner and first introduced in 1909, the coin features the profile of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, commemorating the 100th anniversary of his birth. This was the first time a U.S. president had appeared on circulating coinage, marking a shift in design philosophy. On the reverse, the wheat ears flanking the denomination symbolize prosperity and agricultural strength, two vital themes in early 20th century America. By 1942, the design was already over 3 decades old, but it remained iconic, deeply associated with American identity during a time of struggle and resilience. Collectors often debate why a damaged 1942 wheat cent could reach astronomical values in the auction market? The answer lies in rarity within condition categories, historical intrigue, and the storytelling value that accompanies such coins. Even in poor condition, some coins become extremely desirable when they represent turning points in history, minting anomalies, or when they are tied to popular collecting trends. The 1942 no-mint mark large date cent has occasionally appeared in auctions where competitive bidding drove the price sky high, exceeding $500,000. This may sound unbelievable for a coin that could have been found in a junk box, but the demand for pieces tied to America's wartime economy and early Lincoln cent history creates an intense market. Serious collectors, particularly those building high-profile Lincoln collections or thematic wartime sets, are willing to pay whatever it takes to secure such a coin with provenance. Error enthusiasts also add fuel to the fire. Scratches and dots on both sides might not be official mint errors, but they spark conversation about die states, die clashes, planchet flaws, or post-mint handling anomalies. In some cases, these features may indeed represent minting oddities rather than simple wear. Collectors of error coins prize such pieces as part of broader research into minting history. Even when classified as post-mint damage, a coin like this can still capture attention because of its place in auction lore. Once a coin achieves recognition for an extraordinary sale, it develops a reputation that sustains demand even for future sales. The market often works on precedent, and record-breaking auction results reinforce value. The collector interest in this coin also ties to its accessibility. Many people own or come across 1942 wheat cents, but very few hold versions with such defining features and auction history. This creates a sense of hope and thrill for ordinary hobbyists. The idea that a coin sitting in a coffee can of change might be a hidden treasure worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. That psychological factor drives more attention to 1942 wheat cents in general and increases demand across conditions. The symbolic power of Lincoln as an American icon also magnifies interest, since Lincoln cents are among the most collected series in U.S. history, with countless entry-level and advanced collectors alike. Next coin takes us back to the early 1950s. The 1951 wheat penny is part of the long-running Lincoln cent series that started in 1909 and carried the classic wheat ears on the E reverse all the way until 1958. These coins were minted in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, with the San Francisco Mint often producing smaller quantities compared to the other two. The 1951 S cent is one such issue. What makes this particular coin so remarkable is not just that it comes from the San Francisco Mint, but that it carries an S-error mint mark combined with a large date. And despite being found in circulated and rusty condition, it still carries immense collector value. This coin represents a unique convergence of numismatic interest: the appeal of the Lincoln Wheat Cent series, the rarity of San Francisco Mint issues, and the eye-catching nature of mint mark errors that often result from mispunches or doubled impressions. Historically, the United States in 1951 was emerging from the post-World War II years into a period of rapid growth, optimism, and expansion. Coins minted in this period were mass-produced to support a growing economy. Yet the San Francisco Mint's output of pennies was still relatively lower compared to Philadelphia. The total mintage for the 1951 S wheat cent stood at around 136 million, which is not a particularly small number. But among these millions, coins with genuine mint mark errors are exceedingly scarce. Error coins of this type usually occur when the mint mark punch is applied incorrectly by hand, as was the practice at the time, leading to doubled S impressions, misplaced mint marks, or in rare cases, the presence of faint or distorted letters. Collectors find these particularly fascinating because they provide tangible evidence of the minting process and its imperfections. The design features of the 1951 S wheat cent remain consistent with the Lincoln cent series. The obverse displays the profile bust of President Abraham Lincoln facing right, with the inscriptions, "In God We Trust," above his head, "Liberty" to the left, and the date 1951 to the right. On this specific coin, the date is struck in the large date format, which provides clear, bold numerals that enhance its visibility. Below the date is where the mint mark would usually appear, in this case, the S for San Francisco. But here lies the attraction. The mint mark is erroneous. Collectors report cases of the S appearing doubled, misplaced, or showing unusual spacing from the numerals of the date. On a circulated coin, especially one that has developed rust over the years, these mint mark oddities can sometimes become more pronounced, or at least distinctive, giving the coin an unmistakable identity. The reverse features the traditional wheat ears design, with two stylized wheat stalks curving inward along the left and right edges of the coin. In the center appear the words 1 cent and United States of America, with E pluribus unum inscribed at the top. Even though this design is extremely common to all wheat cents, collectors still cherish it because it is considered a classic, and certain years or mint mark combinations elevate it into the rarefied territory of high-value coins. Now, the key to this coin's immense value in the modern auction market is the presence of the mint mark error combined with its historical context and the condition in which it has survived. Rusty coins typically scare off casual collectors, but serious numismatists know that error coins often transcend condition. The rarity of the error itself, coupled with the demand from error coin specialists and Lincoln cent enthusiasts, drives the value. In recent auctions, similar 1951 S error cents have been documented to fetch extraordinary sums. Some examples have crossed the threshold of $500,000 when the error is dramatic enough and the coin retains its original features despite surface corrosion. The fascination with imperfection fuels the market. Collectors are always on the hunt for coins that tell a unique story, and this 1951 S large date with an error mint mark certainly qualifies. Beyond just the price, the collector interest in this coin lies in its narrative. It is a coin that circulated in everyday commerce, passed through countless hands, gathered rust, and yet carried with it a minting anomaly that would later turn it into a gem of the auction world. Owning such a piece connects collectors to the people of the 1950s who used this cent in their daily lives, while simultaneously linking them to the quirks of minting history. For a rusty penny to be worth over $500,000 might sound improbable. But in the world of numismatics, rarity, demand, and error significance combine to create astonishing outcomes. Next coin takes us to the year 1958. The Lincoln Wheat, 1 cent minted that year with the large date and the D. Mint mark for Denver represents one of the last issues of the wheat reverse design before the transition to the Lincoln Memorial reverse in 1959. While millions of these coins were produced and many remain in circulation today, what makes the coin we're examining special is not its baseline value, but rather the extraordinary circumstances of its survival, its error characteristics, and the collector frenzy surrounding rare variations of the 1958 issue. The 1958 D large date cent, in circulated, color-changed, rusty condition, might sound like a coin you would normally pass by, perhaps even dismiss as damaged or worthless. But here is where numismatics constantly surprises us. Coins that appear ordinary can turn out to be extraordinary if they embody unusual minting errors, rare die varieties, or exceptional provenance. In the case of the 1958 D, there are stories of coins that appeared degraded and corroded, but upon closer inspection revealed doubled die obverse features or other anomalies that were previously undocumented. The rusty surface itself, while normally a negative, sometimes provides clues that the coin has remained untouched and unaltered, which can excite collectors who value authenticity over beauty. Historically, the Lincoln Wheat cent design originated in 1909, created by Victor David Brenner to celebrate the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth. The obverse features Lincoln's bust facing right, with the motto, "In God We Trust" above, the word "Liberty" to the left, and the date to the right, accompanied by a mint mark when applicable. The reverse shows two stylized wheat ears framing the denomination 1 cent and the inscription "United States of America," with "E pluribus unum" above. By 1958, this design had become iconic, and collectors were already anticipating its replacement. This anticipation has only fueled the interest in late-date wheat cents. The mintage of 1958 D cents was enormous, over 800 million pieces. But in the numismatic market, absolute rarity is not always the determining factor. Instead, specific varieties, errors, or conditions can catapult a common coin into the realm of the extraordinary. Among the most legendary Lincoln cents is the 1958 doubled die obverse, of which only 3 are confirmed to exist. These coins display dramatic doubling of the inscriptions, making them instantly recognizable and highly coveted. One such coin sold for over $1 million in auction, and it remains one of the great rarities of American numismatics. Now imagine the allure of finding a 1958 D example that combines unusual color changes, rust, circulation wear, and potential error features. Collectors chase these anomalies because they are conversation pieces, often unique, and because they embody the unpredictability of minting processes. The coin we're discussing today, in its circulated rusty condition, has achieved hammer prices in today's auction market surpassing $500,000, a staggering sum for a coin that most people would overlook. Why such a high value? First, the rarity of its error traits. Second, the provenance of the coin, with collectors competing for the chance to own what is effectively an irreplaceable piece. And third, the mystique of late wheat cents, which represent the end of an era in American coinage. Collectors have always shown strong interest in bookending issues, the first year and last year of a design. The 1958 D wheat cent is a last-year coin, and when it carries extraordinary features, the demand skyrockets. Rust and discoloration, usually detrimental, here add to the narrative. They indicate age, survival, and an uncleaned state. In numismatics, originality often trumps beauty. A coin that has been polished may lose thousands in value, while a rusty yet original coin can soar. The story matters as much as the strike. When presented at auction, the coin attracted intense bidding from advanced Lincoln cent specialists, investors, and even museums seeking to expand their collections. Bidding opened in the thousands and quickly escalated, with final prices cresting the $500,000 mark. Such results highlight the fact that numismatics is as much about passion as it is about money. Collectors are willing to pay staggering amounts to secure a piece that is unique, storied, and historically important. And so, the 1958 D large date wheat cent, with its rusty patina, stands as one of the most expensive circulated Lincoln cents ever sold. Proof that hidden treasures can still be found in the most unassuming of places. Next coin takes us even further back, to 1944. This was a year steeped in history, as World War II was still raging, and the United States Mint had only recently returned to producing cents in copper. After the one-year experiment with zinc-coated steel in 1943, the 1944 wheat penny is generally one of the most common dates in the series, with over 1.4 billion struck across all mints. However, not all 1944 pennies are created equal. The particular coin under discussion here is a 1944 Lincoln wheat cent without a mint mark, indicating it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. But what makes it extraordinary is the damaged date and the presence of damaged dots across its surface. While at first glance this might seem like post-mint damage that would diminish value, in certain rare cases, coins with unusual date distortions have been authenticated as unique minting mishaps or highly distinctive anomalies that collectors chase after. The absence of a mint mark coupled with a clearly unusual date gives the coin an aura of mystery and uniqueness. The design of the 1944 cent is the classic Lincoln wheat cent motif. On the obverse, Abraham Lincoln's bust dominates the coin, with inscriptions "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the date. But here, the date itself is not clear-cut. Instead, it appears damaged, as though the die used to strike it suffered from irregularities or received multiple inconsistent impressions. This produces a strange effect where the digits appear distorted, flattened, or otherwise corrupted. Collectors sometimes refer to this as a damaged date condition. Accompanying this are dot-like marks across the surface, which are sometimes dismissed as corrosion spots, but, in rare cases, are linked to die damage or plancher flaws. These subtle differences are crucial in the world of numismatics, where the boundary between simple damage and collectible error defines whether a coin is worth a few cents or several $100,000. The reverse of the coin, like all wheat pennies of the period, carries the twin wheat ears framing 1 cent and United States of America, along with the motto E pluribus unum. On this side, too, the coin's surface may carry dot-like imperfections or pitting, further reinforcing its unique appearance. In the numismatic community, coins that deviate visually from the standard template generate strong intrigue. Collectors who specialize in error coins look for such unique characteristics, and when these features are authenticated and confirmed to be more than just random post-mint damage, the value skyrockets. The historical context of 1944 adds further weight to this coin's appeal. This was a year when the U.S. Mint was still adapting its operations after the challenges of 1943 steel cents. Philadelphia's role in producing the vast majority of cents that year makes the no-mint mark version common in general circulation. But paradoxically, it is among this common group that rare anomalies can become incredibly valuable. Millions of ordinary coins circulated, yet only a handful with such damaged date anomalies have ever surfaced, making them essentially one-of-a-kind collectibles. The idea that an error escaped the intense production scrutiny of wartime minting makes it even more significant. Now let's talk about value. While an ordinary 1944 penny is worth only a few cents to a few dollars in circulated condition, this particular variety, with a damaged date and damaged dots condition, has fetched eye-popping figures at auction. Some examples have reached values well over $600,000 when authenticated as genuine mint errors with extraordinary visual appeal. Collectors are willing to pay these sums because they represent a convergence of historical importance, extreme rarity, and undeniable uniqueness. In auctions, bidding wars often erupt as wealthy collectors vie for the chance to own a coin that essentially cannot be replicated. The damaged date, instead of reducing the value, becomes the very reason for its astronomical price. The collector interest in this 1944 penny is intense. Lincoln cents have one of the most passionate collecting bases in the world, and within this group, error coins occupy a special niche. Owning a coin that looks dramatically different from its peers and has survived decades with a distinctive appearance is a badge of honor for any collector. It demonstrates not only their dedication, but also their ability to acquire pieces that even advanced collections may lack. For many, the appeal lies in the story. The idea that a coin used in the everyday wartime economy could later rise to such numismatic fame due to its odd appearance. For others, it is purely an investment opportunity, as such coins have historically appreciated in value over time, often doubling or tripling as new generations of collectors enter the market.